Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval. Today we have a special video. Now, we were supposed to be going over the two layouts for the new British prison carrier Victorious. However, due to a power outage last night at my house, I actually could not record the video. And then today when I saw the update, it looks like she's going to have a major change to her stats anyways. So we're actually going to wait to review her until everything has settled down with her. And so that will not be for some time, considering this will be my last video for a few weeks or so while I take a break. That being said, I do want to go over and recap some of the information that has come out from Naval Creed in earlier updates and developer diaries. There's actually quite a very interesting developer diary that came out not too long ago that we will be going over later in the video. So today we're going to be starting by going over the current update and then some other information about some ships that have already been talked about. We'll go into a little bit more depth about them as well, so you can kind of get an idea of where I think these ships will go once they're actually in the game. So let's start by going down this most recent update. So today there is going to be a new event that starts. We will touch more on that later once the update actually comes back out. It is currently 8:11, so in my time it'll come out in about, it's actually updating right now, honestly. So we'll review her or about that in some time, but it does look like the Italian cruiser Garibaldi will be one of the rewards for the event, as well as a British battleship Canada. Now, there's been absolutely no word about the ship until now. So, yeah, there was absolutely nothing, no news, no nothing, but I did look her up, and she seems to be a slightly improved Iron Duke class battleship. So I'm assuming her matchmaking tier is going to be about 5.0. I can't imagine her being anything higher than that. Minimum of 4.6. But the important thing about Canada is that she actually has better guns than Iron Duke. It's the same kind of layout, however, she has 5 twin 14-inch guns, whereas Iron Duke has 13.3s. She has 14s, which actually places her on par with New York. Now, New York may be pretty slow, but she has 10 14-inch guns and, to an extent, pretty decent anti-aircraft defense for her tier. But she is pretty slow, and her armor is not necessarily the best. She is actually a good sponge of damage, if you want to call her anything. So I'm expecting Canada to actually be a pretty decent tier 5 ship. Like you said, I don't have a tier yet. Once the update comes out, we'll take another look at her. But if she is a tier 5 ship, then I expect her to be quite impressive. And we'll see more on her later. Also, the Soviet battleships from Gangut to Imperatriz de Maria to Ismail to Sinop and Navarino are all available for everyone else who did not purchase them in the pre-release and testing phase. They're pretty fun. I'm still looking forward to some of the other Russian battleships that are coming out, but there's also some bonuses for the release of these battleships. Let's see. So you have the ornaments, the ship ornaments. So you have the Russian Eagle. Looks like there's some copper eagles you can get into your reward packs. You can also get some silver eagles in some packs. There's some rank point packs as well, so I'll be sure to get some of those because I want my Moskva. There's also a 4th anniversary pack, so it's actually the 4th anniversary of Naval Creed. I don't actually know what the exact date is, but it seems to be right about now. And they have a little bit of additional things that you can get. But we'll talk more about that later. There's more information on that later. So Victorious. I did say that there were some changes on her. Just to give you a brief look into that, they are increasing the dispersion. They're increasing the damage of the bombs by 200%, increasing the fire chance of the bombs by 200%, and also increasing the splash damage or the explosion radius by 25%, or 200%, or the dive bomber. However, you no longer have 12 bombs for dive bomber, you have 6 bombs for dive bomber. So you're not going to get like the obnoxious number of bomb hits that I had and showed you in previous videos. It looks like it's just to keep it from the game from having so much happen all at once that it just starts like to impact the level of the game. So we'll see how this works out. Obviously, since the update is still currently ongoing, I don't know how that will affect her. But it seems like it won't be as bad as it might be. We still get the same potential damage and same potential fire chance, which, as far as I can see, is amazing. I've gotten some drops where if I don't outright sink the ship, she's left with like a quarter of a health and has like 4 fires on her. And I'm talking about battleships and carriers primarily. Cruisers, she just pretty much one-shots them. And I have not tried her against destroyers because the way that the aiming reticle is currently, it's not really good for dropping destroyers. So we'll see how that is. For the anniversary, here we are. So increase the permanent gem reward to 1600 gems on PvP mode and all this stuff. Yeah, none of these really affect me, though the global arena gems might have an effect on me. We'll see. There's also some challenge missions. The reward changed to 2500 free XP. I think these are in regards to the logistics missions. I'm not entirely sure though, because I don't understand exactly what they're saying here. Also, there is a increased ratio of free XP. So you have free XP rate of 1 gem equals 280 free XP credits. And that's for the next 5 weeks, which is also how long that this event is going to last. They said it's going to be 5 weeks. You also have some iridescent coupon packs, which I will definitely get. And it says all Prism ships except Victorious are currently 15% off in the harbor. So if you've been looking to get a couple or even one, then this might be the best time since it'll be slightly discounted. And then there's also going to be a harbor decoration that comes out. No idea what that is. Alright, moving on. So this was the update that's coming out today. You can read through this at your own leisure to see what else you might find interest in. All of this is on Facebook. So if you have that or have access to it, then you can look at this anytime. But now we're going to start looking at the ships that have either been released for preview in the game, or ones that they've already talked about that should be coming out relatively soon. However, soon is a questionable term because they said that Russian battleships would be coming out all the way back in February. And here it is almost August, and we don't even have half of them really. So I'm not quite sure what their time frame is, but they've talked about the ships, and so therefore I will talk about them as well. So the first one we're going to talk about is actually already in the game for preview. It's the Tier 9 Dreadnought kind of Russian battleship. I've renamed her Rostislav. I've actually forgotten what her actual name is that she has in game. But she's the one with 3 quadruple 16-inch gun turrets. Now, the one before this, Navarino, has 3 triple 16-inch guns, and honestly, even with that firepower, she is pretty disappointing. I have not found any high point at all about that ship. There's ships like North Carolina and Amagi and Bismarck, and all those ships are so much more powerful and strategic, I guess you could say, and tactical than Navarino. So obviously, at that point, you start to have the downgrade in terms of these ships. They're never going to be as good as something that you had in the beginning of the tech tree, where you have Ganga and Imperatriz Maria and Ismail with 12 guns each, and they have average or pretty medium caliber guns. And they're just ditching out a ton of damage. At these tiers, you can still do a ton of damage because this is the same amount of firepower as a Montana. However, you are pretty outclassed because you have casement guns secondaries, which probably won't do that much, and you have little to no AA defense. Your armor is going to be questionable, and yeah, I mean, your speed is pretty decent. It's better than what I expected. These higher tier ships almost get to 30 knots, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, your main thing is your guns, and your layout for your guns means that you are at a disadvantage almost every single game that you run. So I'm looking forward to playing them, to seeing how they are, but they really only have their firepower going for them, and that's not always going to help you. So the Tier 9 Rostislav, Yeah, she looks pretty cool. I'm curious to see on if we'll be able to use the same kind of French quadruple guns, whether you can fire 2 barrels, then 2 barrels, or if it fires all 4 barrels like the British quadruples. So that remains to be seen. Uh, of course, the tier 10 one being Ekaterina. I think it's in German land in the actual game, but I renamed her because I really don't like that name. So Ekaterina has 4 quadruple 16-inch guns, which currently, well, supposedly should be the highest broadside in the game. I haven't actually done the numbers yet, so I can't confirm that. But I would be very interested to see how that is. Now, later on in the video, there's going to be an even more outrageous ship, so if you're excited for that, just wait till the end. This ship will look small compared to that one, trust me. Um, yeah, so 16-inch guns will be a pretty heavy broadside, whether or not she's a dreadnought battleship or not. You're not going to want to give broadside to her too often. That being said, there is an entire new, well, I shouldn't say new because we've already talked about it a bit, Russian BB split line. So the ones that are currently in the works and are just now released out of testing are the Dreadnought ones, and then you kind of have the World War II variants. And so at this point, we start with Poltava, is how I'm going to rename her. She's currently Project 64, and she will be at Tier 7. She is going to have 3 triple 14-inch guns, which is actually pretty small as like altogether for a battleship at this tier. I mean, the only other battleship at this tier that has 14-inch guns is Prince of Wales, and she has 10 of them, and 2 quads and 1 twin turret. So to only have 9 means you're automatically going to be at a disadvantage no matter what game you play. You are pretty much a glorified cruiser. You're not really a battleship. That being said, 14-inch guns can still do quite a bit of damage. I think she'll be a good cruiser hunter, and she will be quite similar, I would say, to Kronstadt, honestly, and kind of throw in a little bit of Scharnhorst in there. But those 14-inch guns will definitely help. You'll also have some secondaries on the side. I doubt any torpedoes. I don't think any of these Russian battleships are going to have torpedoes, but I expect good speed, pretty decent AA for this tier. Armor, probably pretty weak. But yeah, all in all, I am still excited for her. She looks like a nice ship, and I just like the way that these ships look. So that would be the first one that might come out while I'm away. The second one is the Tier 8. I guess you could say more modern Russian line with 3 triple 16-inch guns arranged in a Nelson format. I will be calling this ship, even though she's Project 21, Lenin. And in World of Warships, she has a smattering of 6-inch and 5.1-inch guns as well. So maybe we will see a copy of that in this game as well. The seaplanes on the back make me question, actually, if she will get dive bombers like Svetsky Soyuz. Maybe that's something that the Russian battleship line will have, or maybe it'll be something that only Svetsky Soyuz gets. Who knows? We'll see. But honestly, I'm expecting... I don't actually really know what I'm expecting from the ship. I want to say her armor is going to be good, but if it's anything like Nelson, it's going to be very, very disappointing. But considering it's Russian, it might be better. Her guns, I am expecting to be pretty decent. I mean, you can't go wrong with 9 16-inch guns, no matter what tier you're at. However, Nelson's layout, which is the same as this one, the middle turret, or B turret, is not a 360-degree turret, so you can't spin it all the way around. So I'm wondering if that will be the same thing for this ship as well. And then, considering that all of her gun armament is focused in the forward part of the ship, she will have no real rear defense either. So if you have any games with Nelson or Rodney, then you will pretty much already know how to play this ship. It'll just be at tier 8 instead of tier 7. So you're going to run into a lot higher tier carriers though, so that might be your one focus. Regardless, still pretty looking forward to the ship pretty good. Expecting the speed to be kind of low, maybe 27, 28 knots, I would think. But yeah, nothing that shouldn't be falling out. She might be the most balanced of all these ships, is what I'm trying to get across. All right, so the next one is Project 23, or as I'm going to rename her, Vladivostok. Now, this is going to be quite similar to Sovietsky Soyuz. It's a earlier version of Sovietsky Soyuz, so it's going to have quite a few similarities, including 9 triple 16-inch guns, ranged with some secondaries on the side, which I believe are going to be 152s. Don't hold me to that. I do expect increased AA defense on the ship as well. And just like Lenin, maybe we'll have dive bombers with her. We'll see. Pretty fast speed, I would say about maybe 28, 29 knots. Mediocre maneuverability. Armor, probably the same as Soyuz, so good on the bows, but don't get broadside. So pretty much like an Iowa, just a Russian Iowa. And then the last one that has the possibility of coming out is Project 24, or as I'm going to rename her, Kremlin. Now, this ship is actually I'm very excited for this ship with 3 triple 18-inch guns. That's a pretty substantial amount of firepower in this ship. She also has 8 smaller secondaries as well. So that'd be a lot of firepower in your secondaries, though I don't think they'll be as strong as you might think. So definitely not a secondary ship. But, I mean, at least you have something. Good speed. I'm expecting very good armor from this ship. If you go nose in, I doubt you'll be able to do much, if anything. And she'll have pretty strong armored turrets as well, so you'll just have to burn her from the bow. But if you do get her broadside, then you'll be snacking on some citadels, I'm pretty sure. So this was a picture that was released quite a bit ago. I think I've already shown it once or twice. And this is going to be the both top tier ships for the Dreadnought side of the Soviet battleships and the World War II side of the Soviet battleships. So you have Ekaterina and Kremlin, which they're actually almost pretty similar in size, honestly. But this is kind of what they'll look like. So it looks like they already have the models down in game. So as we've already seen Ekaterina in game, or at least as a preview, maybe we will see the World War II line of these Soviet battleships soon as well. All right, next is a British battlecruiser that was talked about for actually quite some time now. Renown, the 1940 version, or the refit version of Renown. So Renown is pretty much going to be like Repulse. However, she's going to have some updated superstructure and some increased accuracy, it looks like, and some better AA. So as you can see here, she's going to have 3 twin 15-inch guns and also 10 twin 14.5-inch guns. I'm not quite sure on that 113 millimeter. I know it's the same caliber as Daring and Jutland and Trafalgar have in the British destroyer line. But like I said, it's just a weird caliber for me, so it might be about 4.5. That sounds about right. But it says we'll get a lot of dual purpose guns, 5 to a side, honestly, so that's going to be pretty good AA wise, and she might even be a okay-ish secondary brawler. I mean, as a battle cruiser, that's definitely not your priority at all, and you actually want to stay away from any kind of secondary brawl, considering your armor. But it might not be a bad option if you have a really low destroyer that's close to you. Well, who knows? And then it says you'll have more accurate guns and more efficient consumables to correspond to higher matchmaking weight. So I'm actually expecting her to be a matchmaking, was it a 7? So that'll put her up against Nagatos and Colorados and Marylands. It says improve her anti-air ability, but if you kind of compare her to Maryland, which will presumably be at the same tier, she might not be as good as Maryland in terms of AA defense, but she definitely has Maryland beat in terms of speed. But Maryland also has more guns and bigger guns and better maneuverability. So it'll be down to how your playstyle is, really, but I'm excited to see when she will be coming out. In one of the most recent updates, this picture was released, so you can kind of get a feel for how the ship will look, As you can see, you can have the twin 15-inch guns fore and one turret aft, just like Repulse. But on the side, you can also see the twin 113 mils that will be able to be used as well. So they look like they have pretty good arcs. So maybe we will see some pretty decent AA stats from this ship as well. And she will be released for Prism. So she will be a Prism ship that can grind free XP. So if you really like British battle cruisers, or at least middle tier ones, I should say, then this might be something that you should be looking forward to. All right, some other ships that have been talked about, or ones that we'll talk about later. There's going to be Carrier Robin we'll talk about. Matchmaking, actually, that matchmaking has been updated, so that's actually old news. There's the British battleship Renown, 1940, says that you'll be able to get her by prisms. U.S. Carrier Hornet, not decided for how you're going to get her yet. We'll talk more about her afterwards. But right now we're going to focus on the Japanese battleship sub-branch. So we have talked about this just a moment ago. We talked about it briefly. So there's going to be two more ships after Amagi. So Amagi is going to be its own subline. And after Amagi, you'll be able to go to Izumi, which is a matchmaking 8.8. So the same as Iowa and Clemenza, or Jean Bart, I should say. I've renamed her. And she'll have 410 millimeter guns, so the same 16-inch guns that Amagi has, and two twin and two triple turrets. And you'll be able to get her, if you already have promoted Amagi, then you should be able to get her immediately. We'll see if that actually is true. And it says that she'll have a compact main battery layout, but she'll have pretty poor armor. But maybe in that case you might have pretty good speed instead. Amagi is the fastest Japanese battleship currently in the game, like a base speed of 30 knots or so, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see how that turns out. I do have pictures of what the ship will look like after this, but we're going to talk about the 9.6 matchmaking battleship as well. So that one is going to be called Omi. Mind you, I'm going to rename both of these. So once these actually do come out in the game, you'll see that I have the 8.8 matchmaking ship renamed Hiraga, since that is the name of the designer, and the 9.6 one renamed Shinomi. But for right now, I'm just going to call them the Tier 9 and Tier 10 battleship. So the Tier 10 one is another prototype. It's actually a version of Yamato that was considered before Yamato's design was finalized. So this one has a actually it's the exact same layout of two twin and two triple 16-inch guns, arranged with the triples super firing the twins, which is a very weird design and probably would have led to stability issues with both of these ships. But I mean, that's how the design was. So it looks like we're going to have higher muzzle velocity for these guns and balanced firepower and protection. So I'm assuming that this will be a version of Hiraga that has better armor and is just better at lobbing shells across the map. That being said, I do expect their speed to be within 28 to 30 knots, I would say. Maneuverability, at least on the Tier 9 one, to be pretty decent considering her small stature. However, on the Tier 10, I do expect it to be quite similar, if not even maybe a little worse, to the actual Yamato in-game. But that remains to be seen. AA defense, I think they're going to have a few guns that do a lot of damage, but not many guns in itself. So once those guns are destroyed, then you might be able to whittle down the AA defense on both of these battleships quite easily. There's a lot of empty room on these battleships. Secondary-wise, the Tier 9 one actually has casemate guns and secondaries. Casemates were phased out long before this ship should have been built, but that was part of the design still, so it follows through. And then the Tier 10 one has a couple triple 155mm guns in the same kind of way that Yamato has hers, fore and aft. And then the center of the ship has a very, very close collection of twin 127s. And I'll show you those pictures in a minute. All right, so this is the Tier 8. No, the Tier 9. Amagi is the Tier 8. Tier 9 battleship, a Hiraga, or Izumi right now as she's named. As you can see, she has two twins, two triples arranged in a very, very small superstructure. She has some triple or double secondaries on the side. I'm not quite sure. And then you can also see below that in the hull itself, there are a couple casemate secondaries of potentially limited use. But you really don't see any AA at all. In fact, the only AA mounts might be on the main tower itself. There's like two turrets. It's hard to see them really, but there are two turrets, one facing forward, one facing aft towards the funnel, and that may only be her real AA defense besides what's on the deck, which really doesn't seem like much. That being said, she is pretty small, so she should have pretty good maneuverability, or at least that's what I'm hoping. And then she seems like she'll be a good sniper battleship. So hopefully we'll see that in game, who knows. And then this is a better picture online. You can kind of see the turrets on the tower better here. You can see one facing forward, one facing aft. And there are some secondaries, amidships with the casemates, and then you can see the main guns arranged quite close together as well. Very small ship, potentially questionable armor. We'll have to see if she has the same kind of turret cheek that, or the bow cheek that Yamato has. It's not the same hull design, but it may still have that same weakness. This is the tier 10 battleship, Omi as it's currently called right now, or as I'm going to rename her, Shinomi. And she has the same kind of layout, the two twins, the two triples, super firing, and then she has the triple 155 super firing those on very tall barbettes. So she is quite long. She actually might be the same length as a Yamato. It's hard to tell in these pictures. But the firepower doesn't lie. 10 16-inch guns is not going to be the strongest, but it's also not going to be the weakest. I mean, you could have something like Ohio with 8 16-inch guns. I'm not calling Ohio weak, but she doesn't really have a strong broadside. So this ship may be able to be similar to that. So you have the guns, they are spaced quite a far apart. You can kind of see in the middle there's about 8 twin 127mm guns. That is pretty much the only AA on the ship, or at least that's what it looks like. And armor, I'm expecting to be quite bad on the broadside. There's a very flat side on the ship, and she's very long, so she's not going to be able to turn very well. But it sounds like she's going to be best at range with her improved accuracy and better armor, so she may be in a kiting position, and then she'll be able to use her speed to keep the range to her advantage. We'll have to see when she comes out. Here is a better picture from online. As you can see, you have the twins, the triples, and then another triple, and then you have the very compact AA defense superstructure in the middle, and then absolutely nothing else on the deck. It's a very, very empty deck. Though she does have catapults in the back. I don't think the tier 9 one had that, so we'll have to see. Alright, going back to one of those ships that we were talking about a moment ago, the U.S. carrier Robin. Now, in the first picture I showed you, it said she was going to be a matchmaking 7. But a more recent update has shown that she will be matchmaking 5.9. So she will be actually at the same tier as Roiho, Independence, and Furious. And she is an illustrious class carrier that was actually loaned to the Navy, U.S. Navy, in 42, and actually equips American aircraft. However, since she is an illustrious class carrier, which is technically a tier 7, not a tier 6, she is only going to have about 50 planes and potentially questionable aircraft. But what is important to me is how strong the ship itself is going to be, because Illustrious has an armored flight deck as well as pretty decent AA defense for at least this tier. So I'm expecting her to be a very tanky carrier and not one easy to sink. That being said, though, I do expect her aircraft to kind of be lackluster. It sounds like they're going to be pretty weak overall to try and help balance that. But even with weak aircraft, 50 planes is just about the same as the carriers at this tier. And I think Roiho carries at least 48. And then Independence and Furious have between 30 and 40 or something like that off the top of my head. So it sounds like the air power might be underpowered. but the ship itself might be slightly or quite considerably stronger than the other carriers at this tier. It remains to be seen. If you look online, you look up USS Robin. This is how the ship is. As you can see, it's pretty much a straightforward, illustrious class carrier with the secondaries on each quadrant and the additional AA mounts. But she will have, looks like Wildcats and Avengers, I think. So we'll have to see how she plays in game. I do expect her to be a very good carrier at this tier, but we will see. Continuing with American carriers, there's also the USS Carrier Hornet, which is the third and final sister ship of the Yorktown class. We already have Enterprise in the game, and if you do what I do in game and rename sister ships to be different ships, you have Yorktown and you have Enterprise. But Hornet is going to come out. She was part of the Dualito raid, so she can actually carry the B-25s. And in one of the earlier space missions, I think they were testing that kind of gameplay because it was one of the space station mission, the K001. Right as you started the final missions, whether it be Ultimate, Earnest, or Low, you would always have some aircraft shoot out from the space station and immediately drop the carrier that was on your team and do a ton of damage, but then it would disappear. And you could barely even shoot it down, if any. I don't think I was able to shoot it down one time. So that might have been them trying out what the B-25s might be in game, because once you use them, it says they can't land and rearm. It's a one and done. So either you start off the game with a big damage dealing blow, or you wait until later in the game where it might be more effective, or maybe both. We'll just have to see. But besides that, it looks like her dive bombers will be able to be used quite easily. Actually, no, it'll be the torpedo bombers. The dive bombers will be considered as the dive bombers, or the B-25s. So after you use the B-25s, she'll pretty much just be an indomitable, the way that she has fighters and torpedo bombers and nothing else. I am curious to see what tier she's going to be put at, because right now Enterprise is a tier 8 carrier, and with the B-25s, I want to say she will also be a tier 8, but it could also be that she will be something lower than that, considering once you use the B-25s, that amount of firepower will be removed. But we'll see. I wonder how many strikes you can get with the B-25s as well. I wonder if it'll be one big group, or maybe it'll be a few smaller ones that you can control. So you can, if you have, like, let's say 2 squadrons of B-25 dive bombers, maybe you can use one in the beginning of the game and then just keep one hovering around and wait for an opportune moment, or you can save it. There's just a lot of questions in regards to these B-25 bombers that we just don't know yet. And now we are on to the development dialogue diaries. So this came out actually a day ago. I just noticed it this morning while I was eating breakfast. And it has some very interesting ships that are coming out. So we're going to go through those one at a time. Starting with the first German destroyer, Z1. Now, I've actually been looking forward to German destroyers quite a bit. There's not enough destroyers in this game right now. There's only 4 main lines and 3 countries with 1 or 2 or 4 destroyers right now. There's really a vast difference between the number of cruisers and battleships in this game versus destroyers and carriers. Carriers, I understand, there's not many countries that you can actually have a full tech tree line with. I would like to see the Italian carrier Aquila, though. I would expect that one to be something that they would be thinking of, but have no news about it at all, if anything. But German destroyers are definitely ones that they can have an entire tech tree with. I did a video on my assumed tech trees for this game a while ago. You can check that out too, as well as possible gem ships, prism ships, free XP ships, event ships, all that. But the first German destroyer is actually going to be a prism ship. So we'll have to see. It's going to be a matchmaking tier 7, and it's going to have 5 single 127 mils or 5-inch guns and 2 quad 21-inch torpedo tubes. So if you look up Z1 online, it comes up with the Leberak Mass class, which is actually a pretty recognizable class. I think it's a 1934 version or destroyer. It might be the 1936, though I'm not sure. But yeah, you can see how you have the two gun turrets in the front and the three in the stern in a Fletcher kind of layout. The ship is going to be very similar to playstyle as Fletcher. And then she has the twin or quad torpedo tubes midships as well. Now, the ship itself, I'm expecting slow reloading and slow turning guns, mediocre high explosive, but potentially pretty good armor piercing. And for torpedoes, I'm expecting fast reload, maybe not a lot of damage, and then maybe like 8 kilometer range. I have the feeling that she's going to be like a nerfed Leningrad, with slightly better gun placement. She has quite a few similarities to Leningrad, I feel. Speed, I'm expecting to be about 36 and a half knots. AA might be pretty average, nothing spectacular, but I'm hoping slash expecting them to have a special consumable. Potentially they'll follow in the wake of World of Warships German destroyers and be able to equip hydroacoustic search. That would make her a very, very strong destroyer hunter. Um, but we will have to see. This is how she currently looks in the game right now. This picture was released along with this information. She looks beautiful as heck, and I want her in my port immediately. But you can kind of see the gun layout as in the first picture. You have the two front, three astern, and the two quad torpedo mounts amidships with, I don't even see any AA guns. So yeah, a question of how useful she is. Her maneuverability might be pretty good as well, but I feel like she'll be a pretty balanced destroyer with the possible perk of having hydroacoustic search. We will have to see. Moving on with additional destroyers, there is a new line of American destroyers. Yes, you heard me. Another sub-line of American destroyers. Now, I actually think I talked about this as well in my predictions, but it's been so long. It's been like 5 months, so I'm not quite sure. I'll have to go back and look at that. But we have 3 more American destroyers coming out, and we're going to go over them one at a time. But first, let's see what stats we have. Now, keep in mind the armament stats, I don't think are going to be accurate, or at least in this format, because the armament that it says that these ships have and the armament that the ship has actually had are most of the time not the same. So it says it's pretty much going to be a gunboat torpedo load instead of AA. So these ships, I'm not expecting to have any AA at all, but pretty decent speed, good torpedoes, and questionable guns. They're going to be slow reloading, but you're going to have a lot of alpha damage. So the first one is going to be an 8.0 Gridley. Now this ship, it says it's going to have 4 twin 127 mils and 4 twin 5 or 21-inch torpedo tubes, but the actual ship had 4 single 5-inch guns and 4 quadruple torpedo tubes, so 2 on each side. So a total of 16 torpedoes for this one ship, along with 4 guns. So it's like Sims and Mayhan had a baby, and that's what this ship is. And honestly, it's actually pretty close to Benham, which is one of the ships I mentioned in that one video, the Free XP, the Diamond, the prison ships. I think I had her as being an event ship. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe a ring point ship. I think it was a ring point ship. But it looks like she's going to be coming out as a normal tech tree ship. And I am very excited to play this ship. She has a ton of torpedo power. I mean, 8 to a side is outclassed by the current American Tier 8 destroyer, Benson, which has 10 total. But if you just turn her around, you have 8 more. So that'll give you 16 at once. And you can go up and attack 2 targets at the same time with 8 torpedoes. So I'm excited to see what that has. Next up is U.S. Destroyer Porter, which is a Tier 9. Again, it says it has the same armaments. However, this one is also incorrect compared to the actual armament of the ship. The real ship had 4 twin 5-inch guns, but they were not the dual purpose ones. They were a different design. And then it had 2 quadruple torpedo mounts placed amidships. I do have pictures of all these destroyers, and we'll be going and looking at those in a minute. But for right now, we're just looking at the stats. So these ships will presumably have the same good maneuverability that we had with Sims and Mahan, but limited AA defense considering you do not have the dual purpose guns, though I think Gridley actually did have the dual purpose, but I don't think they'll have that in game. So very limited AA defense, but good speed, good maneuverability, very strong torpedo power, and guns that'll have good damage, but potentially slow reload and slow rotation as well. I'm thinking they're going to be quite similar to Japanese destroyer guns, honestly. That might be the best way to compare these ships, as just American versions of Japanese destroyers. So you have the strong torpedo and gun power, but maybe not the reload or AA. And then lastly, we have Somers, which is going to be a 9.6. And this armament's actually accurate. She did have 4 twin 5-inch guns, the same as Porter. However, she has 3 triple torpedo, or yeah, 3 triple quad torpedo tubes. So she'll have, no, they were quads actually. So that's actually still wrong. So she has 12 torpedoes to a side, which is actually going to be the second strongest torpedo-wise after Shimakaze with 15. And then it'll be Somers with 12, and every other matchmaking 9.6 destroyer will have 10 after that. So now on to the pictures. We have Gridley. So you can see the 2 forward-mounted guns, the 2 stern-mounted guns, and you have the 16 torpedo tubes arranged in 4 quadruple mounts placed amidships. So torpedo-wise, the ship is going to be almost unmatched. I hesitate to say that she's actually going to get a torpedo reload booster like Benson and Laffey and Fletcher and Halford and Gearing can get, though I actually think that these ships might get a defensive AA still, considering they're American. However, the effectiveness of that will only be to scatter aircraft. I highly doubt you'll be able to shoot down many, if any, aircraft with these ships. You can see here there's only like a few machine guns. So this is what the ship actually looked like design-wise. This is the picture that was provided by the developer diaries. You can kind of see the single-mounted guns. So the twins that it says it has probably, or shouldn't I should say, show up. If it does end up having 4 twin 5-inch guns, it's just going to make her even stronger. And then we have Porter. As you can see here, we have the twin guns here arranged in 2 forward, 2 aft. So you get twice the number of guns, however you get half the number of torpedoes with only 2 quadruple mounts amidships. So you still have the same broadside power, you just don't have the follow-up 8 torpedoes that you can get if you just do a quick 180 on your ship. But you still have the same broadside, and you have twice the guns. So there's an improved upgrade. She's also a very beautiful ship. This is the picture that was provided by the Naval Creed developer diaries for Porter. Slightly different. You have the higher main or rear mast. So we'll have to see which version they're going to use, whether it's this one or this one. And then lastly, we have Somers. So we have the same guns as Porter. However, we have the 3 quadruple mounts for torpedoes amidships. So it's, to put it bluntly, she is the American Shimakaze. You don't have as many torpedoes, but you have another turret. So that might actually make her even better than Shimakaze still. And then this is the picture that they provided for that. They already are working on the model for Somers. So very excited for these American destroyers to come out as well. Alright, we're almost done. It's quite a long video, but there is quite a bit of information to go over. So the next 2 ships, I'm going to go over these one at a time because the last one is the most obnoxious and overpowered ship that's probably going to be in the game for quite some time. But first, Japanese cruiser B-65. So this is the cruiser that the Alaska class American cruisers were actually built to counter. So It says it's going to be between 8.5 and 9.6 matchmaking. I'm expecting it to be a 9.0. There's no reason for it to be a 9.6 with the armament that it has. It has 3 triple 310 millimeter guns, which is 12.2 inch. And you also have 8 twin 100 millimeter guns, which is 4 inch. It does not say anything about torpedoes, nor anything about AA or anything. So unless she's given torpedoes, I do not expect her to get anything past a 9.0. And even 8. Well, Alaska's an 8.5 and Guam is a 9.0. So somewhere between those two matchmaking tiers is where the ship is going to be. And this is how the ship will look. You have the 3 triple turrets, 2 forward, 1 astern, and then amidships you have all 8 of the 100 millimeter guns arranged for AA defense. I'm expecting pretty good speed, actually. She might be the fastest of all the, I guess you can call it battle cruisers, considering you have Alaska, Guam, and was it the O class German cruiser at this tier as well. You also have Kronstadt. So they're all pretty similar in design, but this one might be the fastest. However, she may not have the strongest armor. I'm expecting her to have some pretty squishy armor. And then she does have a catapult. We'll be able to see what she is able to equip. Maybe some dive bombers if we're lucky. It's always nice to have dive bombers on ships that are not carriers, but we will have to see. And then lastly, the U.S. battleship Maine. Now, I actually talked about this in my possible tech tree extensions video, where I said you can have an extension of the Tillman battleships from Colorado, and you would go down to each of them. The first one, the tier 8, had 5 twin 16s. The tier 9 had 4 triple 16s. And then the last one had 5 triple 16s, which was overpowered. And the only reason I even slightly considered it is because they came out with a Katarina with 16 16-inch guns, also of a Dreadnought variant. So if they were going to reach out to the Katarina design, then the Tillman design that I ended for tier 10, which was the Tillman 4 design, didn't seem that far-fetched. However, they took it a step further. And let's take a look. I highly doubt they'll put it at a 9.5, because once you hear the rest of these stats, it's not going to be at a 9.5. It's easily going to be a 10.0 if they keep it the way that they say. It's going to have 5 triple turrets. However, instead of 16-inch guns, it's going to have 4 57-millimeter guns, or 18-inch guns. 15 18-inch guns. Just let that sink in for a little bit. It's literally a Yamato and 2/3. It's going to be so powerful, or at least on the broadside weight. It has 1 less gun barrel than a Katarina, but a bigger caliber, so even a heavier broadside. And I thought a Katarina was bad, but I haven't seen nothing apparently. Secondaries, you're going to have 21 single 152mm guns. And the way they're situated is you're pretty much going to have an Omaha class cruiser on each side. They may not be the best, but I mean, 21 of them, that's a good amount of secondaries if you have a destroyer that close to you. It's even going to come with torpedoes. Now, I don't know about these stats itself. It says 21-inch torpedoes, but it also says 4 single torpedoes, bow launched. So kind of something like Frederick the Gross, or even Rodney, or Lean, or the O-class battlecruiser. So you're going to have forward-firing torpedoes, but I don't expect them to be single launchers. If anything, they might be twins like Rodney, but we'll see. And we don't know how it's going to be purchased yet, but let me just show you what the ship is going to look like. Now, this diagram is the one that was provided by the Naval Creed Developer Diaries page, and as you can see here, it's stats for an 80,000 ton battleship. That's even heavier than Yamato. And you can see you have the 2 turrets arranged in the bow, and then the rear mounted turrets are actually kind of like a reverse Rodney or Nelson. So you have the 2 on deck, and you have the actually that's the Y turret, super firing. And then you have the secondaries on the side as well. This is a better picture. This is probably what it's going to look like. You have the 2 triples forward, the turrets in the back, and you have a mix of secondaries amidst this superstructure and at the stern. There's none really forward. So even if they are casemates, they're actually pretty high in the superstructure, so they might not be as worthless as other casemates are. AA wise, I don't expect anything at all. If you actually look at and read the information, she only had like 3-inch guns is for AA defense. Armor, I expect to be maybe between 14 and 16 inches on the belt. We'll have to see. And then speed, I actually expect her to get up to about 28 or 30 knots. That being said, she is also going to be so long that she'll turn like an absolute brick, and probably will be worse than the H-42 battleship we currently have in the game. At least, just similar at the least. But yeah, a heavy broadside of 18-inch guns, coupled with a presumably fast speed. She is going to be very, very dangerous if she gets on the broadsides of literally anything. That being said, if anything decides to shoot her back, she'll probably take a bunch of damage. She'll be pretty easy to farm with high explosive, I'm assuming. And then armor-piercing broadside and any carrier attack can damage you. If you actually look at the bow underneath the A turret, you can see the two holes underneath the waterline. I'm pretty sure those are the torpedo tubes. So that might, yeah, I think they'll be twins or twin torpedo tubes, just like Rodney. We will have to see. So with that actually does conclude the information I had before the update, and now the update should be done. Yep, it's 9 o'clock. And so we're going to go take a look to see what the Canada battleship looks like. Alright, so here we are in game. Now, I haven't looked or actually played the event at all right now, but I can show you kind of what it might have. It's actually better if I go like here. So it says Duel of the Times, and it has a modern carrier, which is a Lion actually. You have a modern cruiser, which looks like a Kirov class, and then a destroyer as well, which kind of is reminiscent of a Sovremenny class. So it might actually be you facing off modern ships in the final battle. I will not actually be doing any of these event missions until after the break, so I do apologize if that's what you're looking for. The event came out today, but today is my last day before I go on break. So you will just have to wait and see. But hopefully by then I will have both of the event ships. So the first event ship is going to be Canada, which you can earn after earning 30,000 points. So this is how Iron Duke is. We'll just do a preliminary look at her. She has 343 or about 13.3-inch guns. 2 rounds a minute, 45-second turn. You can see all the damages here. 52,300 health, 28% on torpedo damage resistance. Range of 15.6 for mains, 4.5 for secondaries, and 22 knot speed. And AA is 15 and 40 at a max of 5.2 I have right now. So just keep that in mind, because Canada is quite similar to Iron Duke. And this is Canada. As you can see, it's almost identical. That being said, there are major differences, mainly in the form that she has 14-inch guns, 2 rounds a minute, 45 seconds. She has high explosive shells, which is not a normal British battleship thing. And you can see here, it's actually pretty decent too. 30% chance of fire. That's pretty good. 54,800 health, 25% torpedo damage resistance. Not as much armor. The max armor Iron Duke had was 305 or 12-inch. I don't think that was... I don't know if that was on the belt or the turret face. But this one only has a maximum of 279. So about 11 inches of armor. So maybe not so much armor. Main guns is 16.1 kilometer range, which is farther, but secondaries are still the same at 4.5. And then speed is 22.8 knots. AA defense, let's take a look, is actually worse, I think, than Iron Duke. So your mainstay on this ship is going to be your 14-inch guns, which will put you on par with a New York. And your secondaries are better than a New York. Your speed is better than a New York. Your armor thickness may not be, but actual performance in game will probably be better. So we'll have to see. Obviously, I've not played this ship yet. I don't even have her, but we'll see how she is. The second event ship is going to be the new Italian cruiser Garibaldi. Now, I'm actually quite upset that they made this a cruiser because they're actually going to have to work for it rather than just buy it, which is what I prefer. But it does give a good chance of other players to get it, even if they don't have the money to purchase it. If they just grind the event missions, then you will be able to get her, if you're a decent player, in no time. So you have the three twin, or the two triple and two twin 6-inch guns, along with the couple secondaries and the triple torpedo tube. I'm actually really looking forward to the ship, but you have to get 180,000 points in order to get this ship. So if it's anything like the Maryland and Trafalgar mission, which well, it's not the same kind of mission, but I'm expecting the same kind of time frame. Even after like these 3 weeks are up after my break, I still may not have her. But I'm definitely going to work hard to earn her because I want this ship. So as we can kind of see in what we have already, there's going to be 5 smaller stages and then 3 final versions of this event. So I am expecting a good amount of work up to the final mission. So hopefully we'll be able to see maybe even some new ships. I know last time they had an event like this, they tossed in the Russian or Soviet cruisers, and we were able to get a look at how those perform. So maybe they'll do something similar. I don't know. As you can see, I haven't played this at all. With that, I have done quite a long video, and we're almost at an hour now. So I will wrap it up. At this point, I will not be recording and posting another video for quite some time, not until probably the first weekend in August. So I will be taking a break for then, so for a few weeks or so. I will be back and we will continue going over whatever new ships have come out, any new content, and we're actually going to be going over the world missions at that point. So if you are interested in seeing what those entail, if you haven't passed them or haven't even done them yet, then make sure you tune in back in August and we'll be going over everything. So thank you for watching all my videos. We just broke over 100 subscribers not too long ago, so shout out to every one of you who has subscribed. Thank you so much, and I will be back in a few weeks' time. So have a good day, and all of you be safe. Take care.